I'm Rochelle Potkar, and I will be reading an excerpt from my book, Bombay Hangovers, a collection of 16 short stories. This story is called Noise and it is based in Mahim, Mumbai. It's a story about a mother, Kay D'Souza, and her two sons, one of whom is neurodivergent and is at home, and the other an office goer, John or Jonathan, who goes to work one day but doesn't return. Years earlier, the city had gotten into him. Every morning, Jonathan D'Souza wore a blue shirt, grey tie, black trousers, and ate the same kind of egg. His mother, Kay, put forth a sunny side up for him. He liked breaking the yolk, seeing its stickiness spill out. The noise from the roads below swelled with rush hour honking. Its screeching and beeping induced a liminal, sonic, silent pentameter in him. There was a rhythm in his steps as John walked to work. It would take 30 minutes from Mahim to Bandra if the footpaths and promenades were clear. But beggars and hawkers crowded the footpath. The promenades were partly filled with second-hand cars ready for sale, and the traffic was unmoving at best to the slow choreography of tri-colored signals. This made for an hours-long walk to Hill Road. Today was the same march, like always. John felt the morning's heat over his skin. He could tell the time by the amount of sweat sprouting from his back, the way his vest and shirt were wet. He glanced at his watch. Same time every morning, 9:20 a.m. Only today, he looked at the road leading to Bandra train station. He stopped and stared at the forked paths for a while. Then slid off the sling of his bag, keeping it by the side of the lamppost. He rolled up his cuffs, loosening his tie, and walked over to Bandra train station, boarding the first train that came to his platform. The train was heading in the opposite direction of the business centers, but was just as crowded. At Andheri, harried travelers pushed him out. He fell onto the concrete platform on all his fours, and passers-by hurriedly helped him to his feet. From there, he went across the overhead bridge and boarded an outstation train. In this long blue train were a few empty berths. The train began to pick up speed, and it rocked him into a trance. Before he knew it, John slid over the lowest berth and went to sleep. It was a deep sleep. When he woke, he went to the door and stood staring at the landscape. Tall buildings had changed to short buildings, small houses, and then just trees. It had been 14 hours. The land was flat now and green and brown. No tree, no thought, just the amusement of being alive. John went back to his berth and slept for all the times in his life he had missed sleeping because of Wilson. It was 7:30 and it had grown dark. Kay sat on a chair on the balcony, watching the liberty blue of twilight dim into indigo. The lights outside every balcony burst into orange flowers with stars and lanterns and fairy lights. Diwali was just around the corner, and the air was rife with smoke clouds from firecrackers. She put a handkerchief over her nose. For a change, the mosquitoes had stopped buzzing. It was late for John today, thought Kay. Usually he was home by 6:30. Maybe the crackers bursting on the roads had slowed him down. Wilson watched TV bouncing over his corner of the sofa. The spring on that side had given way, its cloth torn, foam spilling out of the rip like a smile. Wilson was 37, but 4 in his head. On most days, he would fall asleep at 5 p.m. and wake at 4 a.m. and yell or squeal for breakfast. He liked 3 things: lopsy, that is wheat porridge, banana fritters, and rice kheer, calling them lop lop, fritta, and kiki. Kay had to understand that and make a dash into the kitchen. When he woke, he would rush to the toilet. She had taught him to untie and tie his pants strings. He would be back to the dining table, banging his steel spoon on the plate. She had to have his food prepared in 10 minutes. She kept most of the batter ready in the fridge the previous night, and even a washed pan with a ladle in it on the stove. The noises Wilson made did not disturb the neighbors of the building, but it would wake John up in that quiet hour, even if he used cardboard and thermocol bits as wedges in the gaps of his closed door. Kay felt sad about this, but she was never going to send Wilson to a care home. Giving him even half a sleeping pill gave him reactions. Once he didn't wake up until noon, once he didn't sleep until noon, and once he didn't speak the whole day. His head and mind were too soft, she concluded. It was 10 p.m. now, and no sign of John. He would have otherwise at least called. From your own life, do you remember of people going missing? Did they come back ever? Disappearances for me is a key motive and theme, not just physical but even mental disappearances. What they now speak of in modern day living of quiet or silent divorces or quiet quitting in the workplace. Another theme that is woven into this story is the sound of the city. It's this sound that gives our old Mrs. K. D'Souza company in the way it animates around her. A factory siren here, an airplane ascending over the skies there. It becomes the larger clockwork that fills her liminal empty spaces of waiting, of silences, of worrying, of loneliness. Now it's your time to share your thoughts on this excerpt. Let me know in the comments if you would like to read more of this story.